Michelle.
Hi, Peter. So great to talk to you. What time is over there? Sorry, I was just impressed that you're in Australia.
That's all right. It is 7:47 a.m. on Friday
Oh
morning
my
here.
God. Good morning. Good
Good
morning.
morning. I'm first of all going to say congratulations on The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. The original is one of my favorite movies. I probably saw it when I was far too young, but I was very excited to see it being remade, and I love that this is just not. It's not like a typical remake in terms like you've very much reimagined what's here, and I love going into this being like, oh, it's not at all what I'm expecting. There's a lot more like light and shade to both characters, which I really appreciated. So I just want to say congratulations first of all.
Thank you so much, Peter. I'm kind of like I'm kind of worried about the fans of the original, so I love to hear you saying that. Because that's how I really hope they give it a chance, like to see like okay, we're trying to do a whole like reimagining that honors that original one by
Hmm.
doing a completely different thing.
Yeah, because like the original film is such a like quintessential like 90s thriller. Like it was like glossy and suburban and and I know that you've spoken in your work about sort of breaking open genre expectations. Like how did you approach reimagining a film that like it's so rooted in this era, but like you want to make it resonant with like contemporary fears and gender politics? Like how did you approach reimagining what we know?
Like, so first of all, we knew we had a very like iconic movie, to
Mm,
honor, and that's kind of intimidating. So I was like, okay, I really need to, also have a process of creating a whole new soul for a film. So it was like a lot of work. It was a pretty collective job, and I was there since the first draft of the script. And, like you start caring so much about a character and, something you want to explore, which in this case was generational trauma. That's something that I've been
mm,
wanting to in my work. So I was like, okay, this is a perfect project to talk about that. And then I love what you were saying about lights and shades, because to me, big part of the main concept behind this reimagining is to hold two characters that are in the gray areas, that are hard to distinguish as good or evil, or antagonist, protagonist. Like I love those blurry lines between them, and there was a whole thing that after building the characters, we start we started seeing like so many aesthetic like things that we could play with, like reflections and distortions. And there were so many things there that could really serve the theme and our characters that it got to a point through a collective process, that this movie started, asking for its own particularities, and that's when, like, okay, this deserves to exist. And it's not just like a remake, for itself. Like it really is exploring different themes and characters.
And I know I want to say this correctly, like Waysouter
Yes.
was your
No, yeah,
previous
very
film. Yeah.
good.
And I know that explored like the terror and the transcendence of like becoming a mother, and like Hannah Rocks the Cradle sort of deals with the fear of, I guess, like losing that identity to another woman. Like, so how did you see this film expanding your exploration of motherhood, like not just biologically, but like socially, and like did you see those two films almost like speaking to each other?
100%. And I think a lot of people are already saying that. And I guess, like, honestly, Huesera is a movie that got me this job in many ways, because I think the studio really liked it. And I feel like they could see some of the atmospheres and tone that I built in that movie that could work for this one. And I really appreciate that. I guess to me, like, more than motherhood, it came to I mean, and you just said it, like, to me, it's like an exploration of identity and like a challenge to domesticity in many ways. I feel like that's what I'm expanding on, like, like this so-called, like, like kind of like domestic ideal life, that really many times it holds so much violence and silences and avoidant of the important conversations. So to me, it's like an expansion of that challenge, but then in another country, in another language. So it was really challenging for me as well as a filmmaker,
Yeah.
in many ways. But I'm very glad that I watch it, and I do see myself and the way I like to tell stories, through cinema in there. I'm very proud that it really came across, and that the team surrounding me, that they've done so many more movies than I've done. Like they embraced the project with the same curiosity and excitement that I had, being just my second feature. And I feel like they were really trying to study me and my previous movie and what I like in order to do the job as well. So I feel very proud. Mhm.
Yeah, no, you should like for this to be like your second film. It's like insane. So no, you've done an incredible job. And as you're talking about, like you know, you've got this cast, like you know, you two incredibly talented, like strong women at the forefront of this. Like when you're casting actors like Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Maika Monroe, like they have such like strong genre identities. Like how do you harness what audiences expect from them and then like surprise us with something different?
Like so starting, like, I'm a huge fan of both of them. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm working with these two incredible actresses that I admire for so long. And then they're both scream queens, so I know they
Yeah.
can reach, because I mean, like, a good actress for horror is hard to find, because they have to reach those intense extreme levels of violence. But then
Mm.
I do think like both Mary and Micah hold this elegant way to hold so many emotions, in silence with little things. Like, they're perfect actresses for film, and they
Mm.
worked in a way that is so specific, so layered, like very different, but they both really create like backstories and so many layers of identity of their characters. And then they also were so aligned in terms of chemistry, like magnetism between the two characters. And I feel like they both hold this, like, so much of storytelling between, like, very contained little eye movements between them. And I feel like that's something very interesting, that they both like hold that tone, and it was perfect for
Mm.
us wanting to create like a mirror aspect or like a reflection between them.
Yeah, yeah, without like I'm obviously not gonna say anything, but it was quite interesting to because like you sort of immediately walk in and go, Mary Elizabeth Winstead is the good one and Maika Monroe is the bad one, and you kind of like that there's a lot going on that you're like, oh, I don't know, maybe I was like maybe Maika should be the like it's very, very interesting
I know. Oh, I love
to
that you say that.
yeah.
Yeah. That's really what we wanted. That's exactly what we wanted. Because on a point, I really feel like, and I feel it's designed for also feel for both characters, and I think that's very cool and challenging. I wanted to do that, in a thriller.
And was there a specific scene where like your understanding of Polly or Claire like shifted? Like once the camera rolled, Mary or Micah did something that you were just like, oh, that's completely changed my perception of those characters?
Let me think. Actually, that there's like, yeah, there's several scenes that happened, and said I was like, I kept having goosebumps. Of course, the scene in the kitchen, the conversation,
Mm.
it was just so mind-blowing. I mean, on the page, I knew it was a very challenging scene because it's really a lot going on and it's just two people having a conversation, but then they add so many layers, so many things are going on there, and to the point that in the post production I was like, this doesn't need music. Like, that scene, you would think like it would need a lot of like things around it, and it's like, no,
Yeah.
like, that's just them, and that's more than it, and that's because of what they did, in the moment, and it's like mind-blowing. And then, like, not only on set, like Mary and Micah, they brought so many questions to me that were altered the script before we shot, like we there were so many ideas, both for their characters, but also like in the main movie, like Micah started asking like, why shouldn't it be winter? It could be cool because it's like, like family time, Christmas. And I was like, that's actually a great idea, like then we ended up with
Mm.
that amazing Christmas tree moment, so those are the kind of things that I love of the creative process, like someone like that you really trust, that you admire so much, throws an idea, and then suddenly you have like your cinematographer going crazy with it, and then your sound team also, and then the composer. Like, that's what I think it's so amazing of doing movies.
Well, speaking of that, like, like the domestic thriller, like it's such a visual genre. Like I feel like, it's always like immaculate houses and like there's always like that tension. So like I guess what kind of visual language like did you use to like unease in this version, because like as you said, like the I guess that probably extends from being like like being that sort of chilly sort of feeling because like you look at just the colors of the house and the way that yeah it just felt like a cold, and I mean that in like the best way, but like did you sort of have like any sort of like visual language that you wanted to speak with this film?
Yeah, I mean, I had like an incredible cinematographer, Joe Williams, and then our production designer, Kaylee. They were just so incredible. And they
Mm.
really built from understanding the character. the emotionality of the scenes and like the symbols that come from the script, you know. So for example, we had of course the whole thing with mirrors, so we were like, okay, we need to find a house with like this full with glasses, this is perfect. And then they brought more mirrors inside, so then we shortlisted thinking so much of reflections, for example.
Mm.
And like we had of course the element of fire. So fire, if you watch the movie with that lens, it's all around, like there's so many elements of fire and fire color palette, like the colors inside of the house. Many areas are like in fire tones, you know, many of the objects. And there was also like a sense of coolness, as you're saying, like, oh, this is supposed to be like a safe, like domestic, like, you know, very, very like a beautiful, harmonious place. But then there's like something there that is off, you know, in the house.
Yeah.
And I love how this like force comes in to challenge all of that. And then also, of course, you know, this sounds very obvious, but to me, it was very important. There's a whole thing going on with hands in the movie.
Yep.
So many of the scenes and important moments are like literally focused on the hands of the characters. And to me, there was a very interesting play about control, you know, like a game of like
Mm.
who's holding control, who. And there's a very cool moment that I think is cool because it's Caitlin holding the baby with his bloody hands, you know. It's like kind of like this, you know, like this motherhood that is falling apart, you know. And so there's a whole thing regarding so little symbols that actually were very meaningful for the themes of the film.
Yeah, no, it was like, and I loved like hearing all of that because it did, yeah, like watching the film was, yeah, you could. I'm sort of someone that picked up on a few little things and was like, I'm glad that it wasn't just me going,
Oh,
is
no, no,
that,
no, it's
yeah,
true.
like it was
I'm
great.
so glad
And
it
it was
comes
also,
across. Yeah.
and it was the same sort of thing with I would say there was I loved the I guess what I took as the reference to the first film with I guess a certain name that is
Oh, yes.
used and
Yes,
related to an
yes,
actress that I was like, okay, that's a nice little
yes. That
like
was
not
a very
crossover
cool.
moment, but yeah.
That was a very cool Easter egg. That actually did came from the writer. It was a very
Right.
cool Easter egg. And the other one that we also hold is Emma, the daughter, the 9-year-old. That was
Yes.
also of the daughter in the original film.
Very nice. No, it was so yeah, it was so exciting to know that this film was being remade and then for it to be remade in a way that brings just its own identity to this and having two incredible actresses at the forefront. We have a female director that I'm someone who just feels like women tell better stories. That's just me. So I'm very, very happy that
Thank
this
you so much.
film took me by surprise and I'm excited to see it like really take everyone else by surprise as
Thank you
well.
so much.
So
It really means the
congratulations.
world, you being such a fan of the original that you really like it and we're open up to, you know, to perceive it and, you know, like understand it. So thank you. I hope it happens to many of the fans of the original too.
Yeah, I hope so too. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So great to meet you, Peter.
You too. Thank
Have
you.
a good day. Bye.